Night settles over Thebes with a softness that feels deliberate, as if the city itself exhales after the long heat of the day. The last traces of sunlight slip behind the western cliffs, leaving only the deepening blue of evening and the slow, patient breath of the desert wind. In this quiet hour, when voices fade and torches burn lower, the world seems to draw in closer, wrapping itself in shadow and preparing for whatever gentle tasks the night still holds. You walk away from the fading glow of the streets, drawn not by urgency but by a calm, familiar pull, the promise of stone corridors, ancient halls, and the steady warmth of firelight against cool, carved walls. Tonight is like countless nights before it, yet somehow different. The air feels clearer, the silence deeper, as if the temple ahead is waiting for you in its own unhurried way. The day has already fallen away behind you. It feels almost strange how completely it has gone, how the brightness and noise of the sunlit hours have shrunk into something small and distant, like a dream that is already slipping away. A little while ago there were shouts in the streets, traders folding their cloths and weighing out the last measures of grain, children running barefoot through dust that glittered in the low light. Now those sounds exist only behind you, in a part of the city you can no longer see, damped and softened by distance and by the simple fact of your turning away. You have left the noise of Thebes, the last orange echo of the sun sinking behind the western cliffs, and now there is only the slow breath of the Nile somewhere out in the darkness, the pale rise of dust under your sandals, and the looming outline of the great mud brick walls of Karnak temple in front of you. The path beneath your feet is firm but not entirely smooth. Loose grains of sand slide under your soles, rolling softly against the packed earth like a whispered conversation. Each step leaves a faint mark that the night wind will blur and erase long before morning. You feel the strap of your sandals against the top of your foot, worn by many days of walking, softened by sweat and dust until the leather rests against your skin like something natural. Overhead, the sky has turned from the gold of late afternoon to a deep, velvety blue that darkens with every unhurried breath you take. The first stars are already out, sharp and small, and as you walk they seem to multiply, appearing one by one until there are too many to count. The Milky Way stretches high above you, pale and hazy, like a long, luminous cloud lying perfectly still. If you let your eyes rest on it, if you stop trying to see each individual point, the whole sky looks like a river of light that echoes the dark river you have left behind. A faint wind moves across your skin, cool after the long, steady heat of the day. It slides beneath the edge of your linen, brushes the backs of your knees, touches the sweat that still lingers at the nape of your neck and makes it feel briefly colder before it dries. The wind carries the smells of night, the dry dust of the path, the faint sweetness of crushed plants where someone's foot has brushed against the sparse growth at the roadside, and far away, half imagined, the cool, damp scent of the Nile's black earth. Somewhere behind and below you, down the slope toward the riverbank, there are small points of light where houses cluster close to the water. Their lamps glow like fallen stars, scattered with no pattern you can see, each one marking a doorway, a courtyard, a rooftop where someone sits and talks quietly before sleep. Those lights seem already more distant than the stars above, separated from you not just by space, but by the choice you made to leave them, to walk toward the great enclosure where another kind of light burns. You pass between two statues of a god in the form of a ram, his stone eyes watching over the great gate. Even in the dark, their bulk is unmistakable. They squat on wide, solid bases on either side of the processional way, their crouching bodies lined up in a row that leads toward the pylon. The nearest pair loom over you as you draw close, your torch casting an amber circle that climbs up their forelegs. Touches the carved muscles of their chests, then retreats as you walk on. The stone has been warmed all day by the sun and now, under your fingers, it radiates a very faint stored heat, like the last embers in a hearth after the fire appears to have gone out. The torch in your hand crackles softly as the oil-soaked fiber burns. The flame leans first one way, then another, following the invisible currents of air. Its light is not strong enough to conquer the darkness, but it does not need to. It paints a moving oval on the ground ahead of you, a little trembling island of color where dust, sand, and stone take on shades of deep gold and burnt orange, and then it lets everything beyond that oval fall back into soft obscurity. The bronze fittings of the gate catch a dull glint as you come closer, small sparks where the torchlight finds them. The massive wooden leaves of the gate are closed, quiet and heavy, but a smaller postern door within them stands open for those who belong here at this hour. When you step through it, ducking your head a little out of habit even if the opening is high enough, the sound of the city, already faint, disappears almost completely, as if someone has lowered a thick curtain of linen behind you. Inside the temple precinct, the air feels different. It is still the same cold air that sweeps down the Nile Valley at night, but here it seems to have slowed, to have become more deliberate. It carries not just the smells of dust and distant water, but the layered ghosts of incense burned in countless rituals, of oil poured out on altars, of linen washed in the sacred lake and dried on sunlit stones. There is a stillness here that is not the emptiness of a deserted place, but the quiet of a place that is listening. Your footsteps meet smooth stone now instead of packed earth. The faint tap of your sandals echoes back to you from the towering walls that flank the entrance passage. The sound returns a heartbeat after each step, softened and rounded, so that walking feels almost like playing a slow, simple rhythm on an instrument. With each echo, the present moment seems to fold in on itself, as if time here bends just a little, allowing each step to linger. Somewhere far ahead, in the hidden heart of the temple, a priest is finishing the last words of the evening liturgy. You cannot hear the words themselves, the individual syllables are too far away, but you can sense the shape of them in the low, sustained murmur that rises and falls in the distance. The sound is like the far-off hum of bees in a summer field, or the soft roll of a wave you cannot see. It does not demand your attention. It simply exists, a part of the fabric of the night. You lift your torch a little and move forward. The entrance passage opens gradually into the first courtyard, wide and spacious under the open sky. Here, the sense of confinement drops away. The walls fall back, leaving a great expanse of stone floor that stretches out on every side. The stars above seem suddenly closer, as if the air between you and them has become thinner. The torchlight reaches only a small portion of this space, but your body can feel how large it is, the way your steps sound slightly more distant, the way the breeze moves more freely, the way your eyes, even in the dark, sense openness. Colossal statues stand to either side of the processional way. They rise from the paving in frozen strides, 1 foot forward, arms close to their sides, hands clenched or holding staffs and symbols of power that your small light only partly reveals. Their faces are mostly in shadow, turned toward the front of the court, but the edges of their crowns pick up faint starlight, tracing a thin, pale line around the stone. Here and there, where your torchlight glances off an angle, a cheekbone appears, or the curve of a jaw, or the unmistakable, straight bridge of a royal nose. An obelisk rises into the dark like a frozen flame. Its 4 sides narrow as they climb, meeting at a point far above your head where a small pyramidal cap catches what little light there is. When you tilt your torch upward, the beam falls briefly on the lower hieroglyphs. You see a falcon, a reed, a sun disk, cartouches enclosing royal names you know and names that have already begun to fade in the minds of people outside this precinct. The carvings are deep and crisp, cut into the stone with such confidence that even in this dim light, each sign feels decisive. The floor here is broad and flat, the slabs fitted so closely together that almost no line shows between them. Under your feet, the stone is cool in some places, cooler still where a slight depression has gathered the night air, in others it holds a lingering memory of the day's heat. You notice the tiny differences with each step, a momentary warmth under the ball of your foot, a cooler patch at your heel, the faint change in texture where one stone gives way to another. Beyond the reach of your torch, the courtyard is not emptiness but a kind of patient darkness. It is easy to imagine that, just outside the circle of light, things continue, another statue, another column, another doorway. You sense them in the way the air moves, in the way your footsteps take a fraction of a heartbeat longer to return from one side than from the other. You know that in daylight, this place would be a flood of color and shape, painted walls, banners, people crossing from shrine to shrine, but at night it becomes mostly suggestion, a memory held in shadow. Somewhere to your left, a smaller flame moves. A temple guard paces his route along the enclosure wall. You see him only as a silhouette at first, the outline of a man wrapped in linen, the straight line of a spear or staff resting in his hand. His torch traces a slow, regular arc as he walks, the circle of its light sliding along the base of the wall, briefly revealing a chipped corner here, a faded inscription there, before moving on. The smell of his lamp oil, sharper and more bitter than the scent of your own, drifts toward you in a thin, invisible stream and then is taken apart by the breeze until it becomes only a faint edge under the sweeter, older smell of incense soaked into the stone. You walk toward the next gate, the first great pylon of Ammonius' domain. In the dark, its battered facade disappears into the night above you, its sides leaning inward like the walls of a canyon or the sides of a mountain pass. The scale of it is something you feel more than see, the way your own body seems to shrink as you come near, the way the air grows cooler in its shadow, the way your torchlight touches only the lowest courses of stone and leaves the rest to be imagined. Passing between the battered jambs of the pylon, you move from the open court into a narrower, more sheltered space, where the air seems to grow denser, quieter. Here, the sound of your steps returns just a little faster, folding back on itself in gentle echoes that overlap. The walls draw closer, and your torchlight reaches both sides at once, painting moving bands of gold that slide over carved scenes. The king appears again and again, his limbs idealized, his face calm, standing before gods whose animal heads and human bodies take shape and dissolve as the flame dances. You slow almost without meaning to. Each scene looks like the last at a glance, but as you let your eyes linger, you notice small differences. A different crown signals a different region of the land. A particular god holds a symbol you have not noticed before. A lotus blossom bends just a little differently, its carved petals overlapping in another pattern. The repetition is soothing rather than dull, each variation is like a subtle change in a familiar melody, enough to keep your mind gently engaged without waking it fully. Your free hand reaches out, almost of its own accord, and your fingertips brush the stone. The surface is cool and faintly rough, the tiny ridges left by the chisel catching against your skin like the weave of a fine cloth. As you trace the edge of a carved arm or the contour of a headdress, you feel the grooves where pigment once lay, long since faded on the surface but still clinging in the depths of the cuts. Some places feel shallower, worn by centuries of other hands passing over them in just this way, others are still sharp, as if the stone were carved only yesterday. For a moment, you close your eyes. With your sight resting, your other senses lean forward. You feel the faint vibration of your own pulse in your fingertips where they contact the stone. You hear the way your breathing changes within this narrower passage, how the out-breath sounds slightly louder against the wall, how even the small sigh of the torch seems to bounce and return. When you open your eyes again, the carved figures look both more distant and more intimate, like faces in a dream you almost recognize. Beyond this passage, the temple opens into the Great Hypostyle Hall. You step over the low threshold, and suddenly you are no longer walking along walls, but standing beneath a stone forest. Columns rise around you in every direction, thick and massive as ancient trees, their shafts swelling slightly in the middle, their surfaces crowded with carved figures and hieroglyphs that climb upward like vines clinging to bark. The 12 central columns tower higher than the rest, their capitals spreading outward at the top like enormous papyrus blossoms, somewhere far beyond the reach of your torch. Between them, high up, narrow slits in the stone roof, the clerestory windows, open to the sky. In daytime they pour light down into the hall, now, they are simply darker rectangles inside the dark, patches where the night presses in. You stand for a moment without moving. The scale of the space is too large to grasp all at once. Your torch illuminates only a few of the nearest pillars, leaving the others in a layered gradation of shadow, first gray, then charcoal, then black. The hall is quiet, inhabited only by the soft hiss of your torch and a faint, almost continuous sighing sound as the night breeze finds its way between the columns and the gaps in the roof. The air smells of stone, dry, cool, faintly dusty, and under that, the lingering ghost of incense, as if the carvings themselves exhale it. Your flame throws light onto the nearest pillars. The figures upon them seem to lean toward you and then away again as the flame bends. A god's face with a falcon's profile appears, serene and distant, eyes lined with carved coal, then dissolves back into shadow. A procession of priests in relief walks along the curvature of a column, their feet always mid-step, their hands always holding offerings that never quite reach the gods carved above them. The moving light makes them look almost alive for a heartbeat, not because they change, but because your mind fills in the rest. You start walking again, very slowly now. Your feet make barely any sound on the smooth stone floor, the echoes are swallowed quickly by the dense forest of stone. Each step carries you from one small circle of light to the next, the torch in your hand acting like a moving sun in miniature, bringing day to one patch of wall while leaving the rest in night. Sometimes you tilt the torch upward, and the capital of a column emerges from the darkness high above, a cluster of papyrus stalks, their tips flaring outward, then vanishes again as your arm lowers. You notice how the temperature changes as you move. Near the edges of the hall, where the outer walls are thick and the roof lower, the air is cooler, the stone floor underfoot holding on to the night. In the center, beneath the clerestory, there is a faint breath of warmth still rising from the stone that basked in the last slanting sunlight earlier that evening. The differences are subtle, but your skin feels them, a slightly cooler breeze on your bare forearms here, a lingering trace of heat at your ankles there. Somewhere nearby, but out of sight, a door closes with a soft, deliberate thud. The sound travels through the hall, dull and padded, as if wrapped in cloth. It is a reassuring sound, the careful closing of something that has been tended and is now being left to rest. You imagine hands pressing a door shut, fingers running along its edge to feel that it has seated properly, someone nodding, satisfied, before turning away. You move toward the direction where you think the sound came from. At the far side of the hypostyle hall, beyond another gateway, the temple narrows again into a sequence of smaller courts and halls. Each one a little darker, a little more intimate than the last. Here, the roof drops lower, the walls pull in, and the stars are mostly hidden by stone. The night feels deeper, more enclosed. The smell of incense is stronger, richer, as if it has been poured over the walls again and again, soaked into cracks and corners. Under it you detect the faint sourness of old lamp smoke, the metallic tang of bronze, and something faintly sweet, wine, honey, resins that have been poured out and spilled over the years. You pause as you come to a half-open doorway, beyond which you can see a different kind of light. No longer the moving, breathing flame of a torch, but the steady, low, red glow of charcoal. In the room beyond, a brazier sits on a stone pedestal, its copper bowl full of embers. The coals are not a uniform red, some are bright and hot, others darker and coated with a thin layer of ash that shifts and cracks as the heat moves. A thin thread of smoke rises from them in an elegant, unbroken curve, thickening as it lifts and then flattening against the ceiling before spreading out and disappearing into the stone. A priest in clean white linen stands beside the brazier. His head is carefully shaved, the skin of his scalp catching the red light and reflecting it back in a soft, muted sheen. His robe falls in straight, simple folds to his ankles, the fabric slightly stiff where it has dried after washing in the lake. His shoulders are relaxed after the long day, you can see it in the way his arms hang loosely at his sides, in the gentle curve of his spine, in the unhurried way he breathes. He does not see you. You remain in the shadow of the doorway, the torchlight behind you dim compared to the glow of the coals. He holds a small handful of crushed resin in his fingers and lets it fall slowly, grain by grain, onto the embers. Each grain lands with a faint, almost imperceptible sound, and then, as it meets the heat, it releases its hidden perfume in a small, bright burst of smoke. The smoke thickens and deepens, curling and folding in on itself. It rises in layers, an initial thin, almost transparent plume that quickly becomes denser, whiter, more substantial. And yet, even as it grows, it remains delicate, always ready to split and swirl in response to the smallest current of air. The fragrance that reaches you is soft and complex, honeyed and warm, edged with a bitterness that keeps it from becoming cloying, filled with notes that shift from breath to breath. One moment it is like dried figs and wine, the next like pine resin and sun-baked wood. Kyphi. The word sits in your mind with its own weight, tied to other memories of evenings like this, of temples and shrines and sleeping gods. You watch as the priest bows his head and murmurs the last lines of the evening hymn, his voice low and even, the syllables sliding together like water passing over smooth stones. The words are old, older than this temple, older than this priest, older than the memory of any living person. He is not trying to be heard, he is simply saying them because they have always been said, because this is the way the day is folded and put away. After a while, he lifts his head. He sets a small clay seal at the foot of the granite shrine, where the god statue sits hidden behind closed doors. The seal is soft and malleable, a pale, damp circle that yields under his thumb. He presses it firmly into place, impressing the sign that marks the shrine as closed for the night. The imprint is small but precise, a pattern of lines and curves that will show at a glance, come morning, whether anyone has disturbed this door. When he is done, he takes a step back. For a moment he simply stands there in silence, hands folded, breathing in the incense. The smoke curls around his head and shoulders, clinging to the linen, leaving its smell in the fibers of his clothing. His face is turned slightly upward, eyes half closed, as if he is listening to something that is no longer audible to you, the echo of his own hymn, perhaps, or the imagined response of the hidden god. Then he reaches for the torch in the corner. He lowers its flame to the brazier, feeding the coals enough heat to ensure they will last. Then with a careful breath he leans toward a small lamp that has been burning on an offering table nearby. He blows gently across its wick. The flame flutters, shrinks to a thin line, then collapses into a glowing point before disappearing altogether, leaving a thread of smoke that rises, bends, and then vanishes into the darker haze above. In the sudden darkness, only the red heart of the brazier remains. It pulses slowly in the center of the room like a calm, steady heartbeat. The statues and walls around it fall back into shadow, but the glow of the coals continues to outline the curve of the bowl, the edge of the pedestal, the priest's feet where they rest lightly apart on the stone. You turn away, leaving him to finish in quiet, and make your way back toward the wider halls. You move more slowly now. There is no need to hurry. The night has settled fully over the temple, and every sound feels softer, more deliberate. When you pass again through the Hypostyle Hall, it feels different than it did only a short while ago. The columns are the same, the stone is the same, but the air has grown a little cooler, and the smell of Kyphi has followed you, diluted and thinned but still recognizably present. You stop at the base of one of the central pillars and lean your back against it. The stone is cool through your linen, soothing against the muscles of your shoulders. You can feel where the column's surface is slightly uneven, where a hieroglyph's carved line makes a shallow ridge that presses into your shoulder blade. When you tilt your head back, you see nothing but darkness above, but you know that there are carved petals up there, and that beyond them the night sky is still wide and clear, the stars still in their courses. You close your eyes for a few breaths. Without sight, the hall becomes a place of touch and sound. You feel the firm support of the column behind you, dense and unyielding. The floor beneath your feet is steady, its faint chill creeping through the thin leather of your sandals. The torch in your hand has become a weight at the end of your arm, not heavy, but solid, its warmth radiating up the wooden shaft into your palm. You inhale slowly, feeling your ribs expand against the fabric of your linen, and then exhale, letting your shoulders drop another fraction. When you open your eyes again, you feel a little heavier, a little more rooted, as if some of the weight of the stone has seeped into you. You push yourself gently away from the column and turn toward a side passage that leads out toward the sacred lake. The transition is gradual. The columns thin out, the roof lifts away, and little by little more of the sky appears overhead. The narrow band of stars you could see through the clerestory widens into a broad swath. The torchlight spills ahead of you in an oval of warm color on the pale paving slabs, but beyond that edge the darkness looks softer now, less like an empty void and more like a deep, velvety fabric hung over everything. The air is cooler out here. With each step you take toward the lake, a faint dampness creeps into the night breeze. The smell changes too. The strong, smoky sweetness of incense fades, replaced by the subtler fragrances of water and plants, the green, bruised scent of reeds, the faint, clean smell of wet stone, the soft sweetness of lotus flowers that have closed their petals for the night but still breathe out the day's stored sunlight. At last, you reach the edge of the lake. It lies below you like a long, dark mirror, framed by stone embankments that step down in broad, shallow tiers. The surface is almost perfectly still, disturbed only by the slightest tremor when a breath of wind moves across it. When you stand at the edge and peer down, you see your torch reflected, a wavering ember suspended in blackness, drawing a line of trembling light across the water. Above that reflection, the stars appear again, but upside down, so that it looks as if another sky lies beneath the surface, deep and silent. You lower yourself carefully to sit on the stone step. The stone is cool and a little gritty under your palms as you support your weight. Small grains of sand press into your skin, sharp at first and then quickly forgotten as your body settles. Your bare toes rest on the lower step, close to the water's edge. When you shift your feet slightly, you can feel the dampness where tiny splashes have reached during the day, the stone there cooler and smoother. You hold the torch a little farther out over the water. The reflection sways and stretches, the flame above and the flame below playing together like twins joined by a narrow, shimmering thread. Each time the real flame moves, leaning in response to the breeze, flaring a little when some hidden pocket of oil feeds it, the reflection exaggerates the gesture, turning small shifts into long, slow waves of light. The smell here is soft and soothing. You draw in a deep breath, and you can taste a hint of silt on the air, the quiet, rich smell of water that has sat all day in the sun and now releases its warmth into the night. Somewhere very close, lotus flowers float with their petals closed, their stems rising from the unseen depths. You cannot see their shapes clearly, but the faint sweetness that slips into your nose and mouth when the wind shifts tells you they are there, resting just beneath the edge of your awareness. Behind you, not too far away, low mud brick buildings line one side of the lake, the quarters of the priests. You can see small points of light in some of them, flickering in the narrow doorways or glowing from the high, tiny windows near the roofline. Each light marks someone else preparing for sleep, finishing a last prayer, folding a garment, adjusting a ceramic lamp on a little shelf carved into the wall. The glow spilling out is gentle, not harsh, painting thin rectangles of gold on the dusty ground just outside each threshold. The quiet from those buildings is as deep as the quiet of the temple itself. No loud voices, no laughter, only the occasional soft murmur carried on the air when someone says a last word to a companion, the faint scrape of wood as a door closes, the rustle of linen as someone turns over on a mat. The whole precinct feels as if it has drawn a breath and is now holding it, not tensely, but with the ease of someone who is about to fall asleep and is drifting through the last, vague thoughts of the day. You listen. Far away beyond the temple walls, a dog barks once and then is silent. The sound arrives worn down by distance, its sharpness blunted. Closer, you hear a guard cough gently and stamp his feet to keep them warm, the muffled thud of his sandals on stone. Somewhere above you, an owl calls, its single note dropping through the air like a pebble into the lake, creating invisible ripples that fade as quickly as they were made. For a long moment, you simply sit and breathe. There is no need to move, no task calling you, no urgency. You feel the coolness of the stone beneath you, the weight of the torch in your hand, the gentle pull of the night on your eyelids. Your mind begins to move more slowly, thoughts drifting one into another without fully forming, like clouds sliding across the face of the moon you cannot see. When you are ready, you rise again. Your hands press briefly against the stone to help you stand, and you feel the roughness of its surface, the way the grit clings to your skin for a moment before falling away. Your legs are comfortably heavy, the muscles warmed by the day and then cooled by sitting. You follow the curve of the embankment toward the priest quarters, your torchlight brushing the water one last time before turning away. The buildings are simple. Mud brick walls coated in pale plaster stand in a neat row, their edges softened by darkness and time. The doorways are low, you have to duck your head to step inside. The wood of the door frame is smooth where many hands have touched it, worn to a gentle shine that your fingers notice even if your eyes do not. As you cross the threshold, the air changes again. The outside coolness remains, but it is mixed now with the stored warmth of the walls, with the faint smell of straw and linen and oil. The floor is packed earth, a little uneven underfoot after the perfect smoothness of the temple stones. You can feel where the ground rises in a small hump, where a foot has dug a shallow hollow, where a dropped grain of sand crunches softly as you step on it. Inside, the air holds onto the daytime heat absorbed by the walls, but it is not stifling. The small high opening in the wall near the roofline lets in just enough of the night breeze to keep the room breathing. A small clay lamp burns in a niche. Its flame is much smaller than that of your torch, a tiny, steady tongue of light clinging to the twisted papyrus wick. It gives off only a gentle glow, illuminating a circle of space around it, a wooden chest with its lid fitted snugly, a folded linen kilt with careful creases, a low sleeping platform covered with a woven mat whose fibers show as thin, intersecting lines in the lamplight. Beyond that circle, the rest of the room settles into soft shadow, edges blurred and indistinct, nothing threatening, nothing harsh. You plant your torch in a simple stand near the door. The wooden pole rests comfortably in a shallow hole in the packed earth, leaning slightly toward the center of the room. The taller, more lively flame settles for a moment, then sends a small plume of smoke upward, where it darkens the ceiling just a shade more. For a short while, the two lights share the space, the stronger torchlight pushing back the shadows and making the small lamp seem almost shy, its flame pale in comparison. Then you pinch the top of the torch's flame gently between your damp fingers. You can feel the small resistance of the fire, the slight sting of heat against your skin, followed by the instant coolness as the flame dies. It goes out with a soft hiss, leaving behind a wisp of smoke and the faint smell of scorched oil. The room shrinks in a pleasant way. Details soften, and the remaining light becomes warmer, more intimate. The shadows are no longer deep black. They are velvety gray, full of subtle shapes. The lamp's yellow glow reveals the grain of the wooden chest, the slight warping of its lid where the wood has swelled and shrunk with the seasons. It outlines the faint lines in the packed earth of the floor, where someone has once drawn a finger absent-mindedly while sitting and thinking. It gleams on the rim of a little dish of water placed near the head of the sleeping mat, catching a fragment of reflected flame. You sit on the edge of the low platform and unfasten your sandals. The leather straps fall away from your ankles with a whisper of sound. When you lift your feet, the soles are marked faintly with dust and a fine pattern left by the weave of the sandals. The mat accepts the weight of your legs with a soft creak, the fibers shifting and compressing. You set the sandals aside, their flat shapes leaning against the chest, ready for morning. When you stretch your toes, the cool of the floor meets your skin. The earth is rougher here than in the temple, but the irregularities are small, familiar. A tiny pebble presses against one toe for a moment until you move slightly and it settles into a different place. The floor smells faintly of dust, of straw, of the oil that has been spilled in small drops over months and years and then dried into the earth. You unbind your linen kilt and fold it with slow, practiced motions. The fabric is cool against your fingers, still carrying a hint of the water in which it was washed and the faint, clean scent of natron. You smooth it with your palms so that no sharp creases remain, pushing out invisible pockets of air, laying each fold neatly upon the last. When it is done, a simple, flat bundle, you place it carefully on the chest, aligning it with the edge as if that small act of order helps the day settle. Your body feels different now that it is no longer wrapped for ritual. Without the tightness of the belt, your breath moves more freely. Your shoulders drop a little further, your back curves in a way that would never be allowed in the presence of a god but feels entirely natural here. The skin along your waist feels the surprise of air and cools slightly. You are still clean, you washed in the sacred lake not long ago, the memory of the cold water on your skin still vivid and pleasant, but now there is nothing for you to perform, no posture to hold for anyone's sake. You sit for a moment with your elbows on your knees, hands loosely folded, just breathing and listening to the small sounds of the night filtering in. The faint rush of wind outside makes a low, continuous murmur, like distant waves. Somewhere above, in the rafters, a piece of dried reed shifts with a soft tick as the air moves. In the room next to yours, someone shifts on a mat, the straw beneath it rustling like dry reeds on the riverbank. The small lamp in its niche makes almost no sound, but you can hear a tiny, irregular whisper as the oil feeds the wick, a sound so soft you notice it only when you let your mind grow very still. On the floor beside your sleeping place lies a small amulet in the shape of a headrest. The miniature curve of it mirrors the larger wooden headrests used throughout the land, a little crescent lifted on two supports. You pick it up and turn it over in your fingers, feeling the smoothness of the stone, the slight chill of it against your warm skin. Its edges are worn, not from centuries, but from the simple habit of being handled at moments like this, between waking and sleeping, between the day's work and the night's rest. You imagine the sun rising between the twin supports of a full-sized headrest, as it is carved in tombs. That daily rising is part of the same cycle that has carried you through this day, the bright, hot hours, the long, golden afternoon, the soft descent into evening, and now this deepening night. You imagine that same sun rising tomorrow, as it has always risen, as it will continue to rise. The thought is calming, not because it promises anything in particular, but because it is so dependable. You place the amulet just beneath the edge of your mat. Your fingers slide it into the small space between the mat and the floor, where it nestles against the packed earth, unseen but not forgotten. You know that your hand will easily find it again in the night if you wish, a solid, curved shape under your fingertips that will remind you of the larger solidity all around you, the walls, the temple, the land itself. Then you reach up to the lamp. You do not extinguish it, not yet. Instead, you hold your hand above the flame for a moment, feeling its gentle warmth on your palm. The heat is not intense, it is more like the warmth of another hand held near yours, or the faint glow of sun-warmed stone after sunset. The light makes the skin of your fingers glow a little red from within, outlining the delicate web of veins just beneath the surface. For a while, you will let it burn. You lower your hand and lie down on your side, drawing your knees up just enough to feel comfortable. The mat gives beneath you, springs of woven fibers compressing around the weight of your hips and shoulders. The earth beneath that is firm and reassuring, a steady presence under the thin layer of straw and reed. You rest your head on the rolled linen that serves as your pillow, feeling its familiar softness shape itself to the back of your skull, supporting the curve of your neck in a way your body already understands. From this angle, the lamp's flame is at the edge of your vision. You can see it without staring directly at it. It wavers slightly as the air moves, brightens and dims in a slow, irregular rhythm that seems to echo the rise and fall of your chest. Each time you breathe in, a thin column of air rises past the niche, making the flame lean away for an instant before it straightens again. Each time you breathe out, the air warms the space around you, and the light seems to settle a little more deeply into the room. Your thoughts drift. They move back over the path you have walked tonight, the gate and its watching statues, the vastness of the first court, the shadowed colonnades, the towering column forest of the Hypostyle Hall, the quiet glow of the brazier in the sanctuary, the still mirror of the sacred lake. Each place feels like a room in some enormous, invisible house that belongs as much to the night as it does to the day, rooms you can visit in memory without moving a muscle. The images blur gently at the edges, softening into something like the early mist that rises from the river in the cool season. You do not hold on to any one picture for long, you let them come and go as they wish, like visitors passing through a doorway. The feeling that remains beneath them all is simple and steady, the sense of being inside something vast and protective, of being one small, breathing creature cradled by stone, water, air, and time. Slowly, without effort, your body grows heavier on the mat, your breath grows deeper, and the lamplight at the edge of your vision becomes merely a soft, flickering presence in a room that is beginning to fade into a deeper, kinder darkness. After a while, you push yourself gently upright again. The movement is unhurried, a small, deliberate rising from a place where you could just as easily stay. Your muscles complain only softly, a faint stiffness in your back, a heaviness in your legs, and even that feels reassuring, proof that your body has carried you well through the day. You sit for a moment on the edge of the mat, bare feet resting on the packed earth, and let your balance settle. There is one more place you wish to visit, one more slow walk you wish to take before you fully surrender to sleep. The thought comes not as a demand, but as a quiet suggestion, like a gentle hand on your shoulder. The temple is so close, its vastness lying just beyond these thin walls, its halls and courtyards unfolding in the darkness like layers of a dream. You feel a pull to step into that larger night once more, to let your mind and feet wander through those spaces while the world is at its most still. You watch the lamp for a moment. Its flame has burned lower while you rested. The oil in the shallow bowl has receded, and the wick has darkened at its tip, bending slightly. The light is softer now, dimmer, spreading less far across the walls. The little halo it casts around itself looks almost fragile, as if a stronger breath might snuff it out, and yet the flame persists, steady and determined. You decide to leave it burning. Its quiet, faithful presence will be here to greet you when you return, a small island of light waiting at the center of this room. The thought of that waiting flame is comforting, like knowing that a friend will keep watch for you while you step out for a while. You rise to your feet, feeling the cool kiss of the night air against your skin where your linen shifts and parts, and step toward the door. You slip your sandals back on without fastening them. The worn leather welcomes your feet, adjusting easily to their shape. You do not take the time to tighten the straps. The familiarity between foot and sandal makes that unnecessary for such a short walk. The soles clap softly against the earth as you move, the sound quiet and muffled in the small room. At the threshold, you pause for a heartbeat. Your hand rests lightly on the door frame, fingers feeling the smoothness of the wood, the faint grooves left by other hands. The lamplight behind you casts a long, thin shadow of your body across the packed earth, stretching toward the center of the room. For a moment, you are balanced between two spaces, the warm, small, known interior and the cool, vast, open temple beyond. Then you step through and let the door fall gently closed behind you. The night outside feels cooler now after the relative warmth of the small room. The air brushes against the skin of your arms and neck with a freshness that makes you more awake, but not in a sharp, jarring way. It is the kind of wakefulness that comes when you step out under the stars after sitting in a lamplit room, when your senses widen just enough to register the change in temperature, the faint shifts in sound. You pull your linen a little closer around your chest. It is not necessary, the cold is not biting. But the small gesture, wrapping the cloth across your body and tucking it more firmly, feels like a way of acknowledging the touch of the night, of accepting it and answering it with your own softness. The fabric rustles quietly as you adjust it, the sound mingling with the distant murmur of the wind. No torch this time. You leave the hall lit only by the weak lights that leak out from the priest quarters and the distant glow of a solitary torch far across the precinct. Without the bright, insistent circle of fire in your hand, the darkness feels gentler, less divided. The stars above seem stronger by comparison, their light no longer competing with flame. The familiar path to the Hypostyle Hall reveals itself not through sight but through memory and touch. You know where the flagstones dip slightly, where the wall on your right angles inward in a way your shoulder has brushed past many times. The soles of your sandals recognize the tiny ridge before a step, the smoother strip of stone where many feet have worn away the roughness, the almost imperceptible shift from one type of surface to another. Your feet find these markers without effort, guided by the faint shimmer of starlight and the soft light of the distant torch that someone else carries on his own rounds. Your breathing sounds louder to you out here. Without the constant crackle of a torch or the close echoes of a small room, each inhale and exhale falls clearly into the quiet. As you walk, your breath falls into step with your feet, in on one step, out on the next, the rhythm smoothing out into something steady and calming. You become aware of the feel of air moving in and out of your chest, cool at your nostrils, warm as it leaves. Soon, the dark bulk of the hall's entrance looms ahead. You see it first not as a shape, but as a change in the stars, a section of sky where the bright points are abruptly cut off, a solid hulk of blackness that something inside you recognizes immediately as stone. As you come closer, the outline of the doorway appears, a deeper dark within the dark, framed by shadowed walls that rise on either side. Stepping inside, you pause once more. The difference between outside and inside is subtle but clear. The air grows cooler by a fraction, and the sounds change. The faint rustling from the lake fades, the open whisper of the wind becomes a more complex, layered murmur as it slips between the columns. Your own footsteps sound different too, their echoes returning more quickly, bouncing from surface to surface in smaller, overlapping waves. You let your eyes adjust to the deeper darkness. At first, the hall is nothing but a mass of shadow, a sense of enclosed space without form. Then, slowly, your vision begins to sort the shades. The columns, at first just darker pillars against a dark background, start to show their edges. The outlines of their round bases emerge, faint and gray against the black floor. High above, through the clerestory windows, the sky appears again, not as one broad expanse but as a series of star-filled rectangles framed by stone. The stars look different from here. Seen through those high, narrow gaps, they seem more precise, more contained, like jewels set into the ceiling. You can almost imagine that they belong to the temple, that they are part of its design, placed there deliberately rather than watched through empty spaces. The thought is strangely soothing, the idea that even the sky, in this place, participates in an ordered pattern. There is no flame in your hand now. Instead, you let the faint light from a far torch, 2 halls away, graze the edges of things. It is barely more than a suggestion, a soft glow that seems to hover at the edge of your awareness rather than clearly illuminating anything. Yet it is enough. Your mind fills in the rest, using memory to complete what your eyes begin. You feel your way to one of the central columns and sink down at its base. The stone meets your back with familiar firmness. Sitting here is different from standing, your perspective shifts. The column seems even larger from this vantage point, its shaft rising straight up beside you, disappearing into darkness somewhere far above. The floor beneath you is cool, the chill pressing through the thin linen at the back of your legs and settling pleasantly into your skin. You stretch your legs out in front of you. The soles of your sandals slide a little on the stone as you adjust, creating a small, dry whisper of sound. You let your heels rest, feeling the slight curve of the floor where countless feet have worn a shallow depression over time. Your hands fall naturally to your thighs, palms down, fingers relaxed, as if your body is arranging itself in a shape it has taken many times before. You let the back of your head come to rest against the column. The curve of the stone is not designed for comfort, but your skull finds a place where the pressure feels exactly right, supporting you without demanding anything. From this position, your face tilts up toward the invisible capitals and the sky beyond, and your neck muscles, no longer needed to hold your head upright, begin to soften. You listen again. The hall is not silent, not entirely. There is the tiny patter of sand as a few grains dislodge somewhere high and fall in a soft, sporadic rain. Each minute sounds separate, but all of them together forming a faint, irregular pattern. There is the occasional breath of wind, threading itself between the columns, creating a low, shifting murmur that rises and falls without any sharp edges. Very faintly, you think you can hear the ripple of water from the sacred lake, carried on some wandering current of air. It is not a clear sound, not the obvious splash you would hear standing on the embankment. It is more like a suggestion, the ghost of a movement, the hint of a tiny wave touching stone. Whether it is truly water or simply the wind playing tricks with echoes does not matter. What matters is the sense of connection, that the hall and the lake and the night share the same breath. Under all of it, there is the steady, slow sound of your own breathing. In. You feel the coolness entering your nostrils, brushing the back of your throat, spreading into your chest. The ribs gently lift, the fabric of your linen shifts, the skin along your side stretches ever so slightly. You pause for a heartbeat, letting the air rest inside you. Out. You feel warmth leave you, carrying with it a little of the day's fatigue, a little of the tension in your shoulders, a little of the heaviness behind your eyes. Your chest settles, your ribs fall, your waist softens. The exchange is simple, repetitive, endlessly reliable. You repeat this, again and again, each time a little slower. As you do, you start to notice even more subtle sensations. The way your palms feel as they rest on your thighs, the fabric beneath them smooth in some places, wrinkled in others. The slight rise and fall of your hands with each breath, so gentle you might miss it if you were not paying attention. The way your heel connects to the stone through the thin leather of your sandals, the contact steady and unchanging, an anchor pulling you gently downward. The back of your head presses into the column, and as your neck muscles let go, that pressure changes. At first, it feels like a single, firm point. Then, as the muscles along your spine soften, the contact spreads, becoming a broader, more diffuse sensation. You begin to feel the way the curve of the column matches the roundness of your skull, two shapes fitting together in a simple, natural way. Your thoughts continue to wander, but they do so lazily now, like boats drifting on slow water. You imagine the hall at other times, filled with sunlight in the morning, with the chanting of priests and the music of sistrums and drums during festivals, with the buzzing of flies and the movements of pigeons nesting in the high corners. You picture bright paint on the carvings, banners fluttering, crowds moving in processions between the columns. Those scenes feel distant now, as if they belong to another world that shares this same stone but not this same silence. Tonight, the hall belongs to a narrower set of sounds and a quieter set of movements. It is a place where stone remembers all those busier days, all those voices and colors, but chooses merely to rest. The carvings are still there, but in this light they are content to be texture rather than image. The air is content to carry only small noises, the brush of your breath, the occasional shift of your weight, the far-off step of a guard in another part of the temple. After a long, uncounted span of time, you gently push yourself up again. There is no sense of hurry as you do so, only the mild realization that your legs have grown numb in places and will be grateful for movement. You plant your hands on the floor beside your hips, feeling the chill and roughness of the stone, and use that solid surface to help you rise. Your muscles answer with a slow, cooperative effort, a gentle stretch rather than a strain. Your legs tingle as the blood returns to parts that have melted into stillness. The feeling is strange but not unpleasant, like the fizzing of a small stream over pebbles. You shift your weight carefully from one foot to the other, letting the sensation settle, giving your body time to remember exactly where it is and what it must support. You run a hand along the base of the column, fingers tracing the carved lines once more, grounding yourself in the physical presence of the stone. In the dark, you cannot see what image your fingers pass over. Perhaps it is the leg of a god, the staff of a king, the curl of a lotus petal. All you feel are shallow grooves and crisp edges, the places where the stone has given way and the places where it has remained. Whatever the carving, it has been here for centuries and will still be here when you are long gone. The thought does not make you feel small. Instead, it makes you feel included, as if you are a brief, breathing addition to the long story these stones are quietly telling. You retrace your steps. Out of the hall, back along the paths that now feel as familiar as the lines in your palm. The faint glow of one last torch at a distant corner slides in and out of your peripheral vision as you walk, a wandering point of light marking some other person's slow circuit through the night. You move past it without needing to approach, the knowledge of another presence in the temple enough in itself. The sacred lake lies nearby, though you do not go all the way back to it. You sense its presence in the coolness that touches your skin when you pass the opening that leads toward it, in the faint, water-softened echo that returns when your footstep falls in that direction. You catch again, just briefly, the memory of lotus and damp earth, a gentle reminder of the quiet surface lying there in the dark, reflecting stars. Back to the row of mud brick rooms you go. each one a small pocket of warmth tucked along the temple's side. The walls look darker than the sky, their edges defined by the slight absence of starlight rather than any light of their own. A few doorways show thin lines of glow where lamps burn within, but many are already dark, their inhabitants already sunk into sleep. Your own doorway welcomes you with a familiar, modest pool of lamplight, spilling out just enough to paint a small, pale rectangle on the ground. The tiny flame is still burning. It is lower now, the oil in the bowl almost gone, the wick short and curled at the tip. It has not been lonely. The room feels as you left it, quiet, containing your folded linen, your chest, your mat, your amulet under the edge of it. The air holds a hint of your own body's warmth, mingled with the faint, clean smell of linen and the subtler scent of smoke from the lamp. You step inside, close the door softly behind you. The wood meets the frame with a gentle thud, and the small sound seems to seal the room, closing out the larger spaces of the temple without shutting them away entirely. You know they are still there, that the halls and courts and lake continue their slow breathing in the night, but for now your world narrows to this simple, enclosed space and the small light at its center. You move almost silently now. The sandals come off with a soft slide and a barely audible tap as you set them aside. Your feet, freed again, find the coolness of the packed earth, the slight unevenness where your heel dips a fraction of a finger's breadth lower than the ball. The mat rustles faintly as you sit, then lie back down, its woven fibers adjusting to your weight, releasing some of the shape they held while you were away. You reach out one hand to touch the amulet without taking it out. Your fingers find it easily, the small curved shape pressed into the ground beneath the mat, like a stone hidden under sand. The contact is immediate and solid, a firm resistance in a world where everything else seems to be becoming softer, more diffuse. You do not need to grip it, to hold it tightly. Just the awareness that it is there, that your hand can touch it whenever you wish, is enough. The lamp's flame dances a little in the sudden movement of air your body makes. It bends toward the door for an instant and then straightens again, its small tongue of light licking upward and then settling. The shadows on the wall beside it shift, their shapes stretching and contracting like living things before coming to rest once more. In this small space, even such a tiny change in the air is enough to create a quiet, captivating drama of light and dark. You watch it from the edge of your vision as your eyes grow heavier. The shadows on the walls soften further, their edges blurring until they are only gentle gradients, a slow slide from gold to gray to black. The lamp's light shimmers, not in sudden leaps, but in small, continuous variations, like the surface of a pond disturbed by the most delicate drizzle. Each time you blink, the scene in front of you pauses, then resumes from a slightly different arrangement of flickers. Each blink takes a fraction of a second longer to reverse. After a while, you stop noticing exactly when you are opening or closing your eyes at all. The line between seeing and not seeing becomes porous, and images continue even when your eyelids are lowered. The memory of the flame, the outline of the niche, the impression of the wall. Your attention, no longer anchored to specific shapes, begins to curl inward. You let your awareness turn toward the feeling of your body. The weight of it sinks into the mat, which in turn presses into the earth. There is a sense of being held from below, not by one point, but by countless tiny contacts: shoulder, hip, thigh, calf, heel, the curve of your ribs, the back of your hand where it rests against your chest or beside you. Each of those contact points is a place where the earth quietly says, "Yes, I am here, you may rest." Your breath has become very quiet. It moves in and out with so little effort that you might almost think you have stopped breathing, if not for the subtle movement of your chest and the occasional deeper sigh that unexpectedly rises from within. Those deeper breaths feel like small waves, washing through you and then receding, leaving a little more stillness behind each time. The last warmth from the lamp reaches you in a gentle way. It does not heat the room, not truly, but its presence has created a tiny pocket of air above it that is just a little warmer, and that warmth rises and spreads out in the most delicate currents. Sometimes a stray wisp touches your face or your hand, and you feel a faint difference, like stepping from shade into sunlight for half a heartbeat and then back again. Outside, the temple holds its own long, patient vigil. The god rests in his sanctuary, the doors sealed with clay, the impression unmarred. The coals in the brazier have sunk into a deeper, darker glow, but there are still a few small hearts of red within them, their heat surviving in the thick copper bowl. The water in the sacred lake lies quiet, the stars painted upon it as they move across the sky, the reflections sliding in perfect, silent parallel with the real lights above. The columns of the Hypostyle Hall stand where they have always stood. Their carved surfaces catch just enough starlight at their highest points to remember the day, but not enough to show their details. Owls pass between them sometimes, wings silent, eyes bright. A guard's footsteps sound now and again as he continues his slow, circular path, the torch in his hand a moving point of fire in the vast precinct. All of this continues without you needing to attend to it, like the beating of the temple's own heart. Inside your small room, the lamp burns lower. The oil that remains is only a thin sheen on the bottom of the bowl, clinging to the clay. The flame, once a neat, upright teardrop, has become a smaller, more irregular shape, leaning first one way, then another, searching for fuel. It has to work a little harder now, and in doing so, it creates brief moments of brightness followed by dimmer pauses, like someone speaking in a whisper that sometimes strengthens for a word before fading again. The wick, partly consumed, glows a dull red even where no flame touches it. For a heartbeat, the wick almost seems like an ember that could live on its own without the surrounding fire. Then the oil thins even more, and the flame sinks down, clinging stubbornly to the twisted fibers. It flickers once, twice, as if in sympathy with your breath, then shrinks to the smallest possible tongue of light. You do not startle. The darkness that follows is not abrupt, it feels like a soft cloth drawn gently over your eyes, layered over a vision that has already grown hazy. The last moment of light leaves behind a memory in the air, the faint smell of smoke, the warmth held in the clay of the lamp, the outline of the niche, all of which linger even when they can no longer be seen. For a heartbeat, the wick glows on its own, a little red coal suspended in the darkness. It pulses faintly, then darkens, leaving the room without any flame at all. Yet the darkness is not empty. It is thick and velvety, full of the shapes of familiar things you no longer need to distinguish. You can still sense where the lamp is, as a warm echo in the air. You can still sense the near wall, the door, the small weight of the chest at the foot of your sleeping place, the headrest amulet under your hand. You take another slow breath. In the coolness of the night, the last, lingering threads of Kyphi in your memory, the echo of lotus and water, the warmth once held in the lamp clay now dissipating into the room. Out, the day, the heat, the tasks, the long walk, the images carved in stone, the voices, the distant city and its worries. Each breath draws the border between today and whatever day will follow a little more clearly. With each breath, it becomes easier to let thoughts drift without following them. Snatches of dreams begin to curl up from whatever deep place they come, a path of light along the sacred lake, columns bending like reeds in a gentle wind, a sun disk rising not in the east but from the center of a dark room, carried by unseen hands. These images do not demand sense, they simply float through, soft and mutable, and you allow them to come and go. You feel safe. The temple walls are thick around you, layers of mud, brick and stone that have stood through many nights like this. The god is nearby, sleeping his own vast sleep, his presence pressing gently at the edges of your awareness like the weight of the sky on the horizon. The priests and guards are awake enough for all of you, their watchfulness allowing you to release your own. Outside, the Nile flows in its timeless course, the desert keeps its ancient watch, the stars move slowly in their patterns. They draw invisible lines above the columns, above your roof, above your closed eyes. Those movements are vast and slow, spanning distances and durations your day-bound mind cannot truly hold, but tonight they are only a backdrop of reassurance, a reminder that the world continues in its great cycles whether or not you are awake to see it. Your breath becomes very quiet. The rise and fall of your chest is small, barely noticeable, and yet it continues with unfailing regularity. The muscles of your face loosen, your jaw rests, your tongue lies heavy and still behind your teeth, your brow smooths. Your hands, no longer holding anything, relax completely, fingers curling slightly in toward your palms. The weight of your body spreads out. You could almost believe that you are sinking a little into the earth, becoming part of the cool, reassuring solidity beneath you. The boundary between where your body ends and where the mat and ground begin feels less strict, more porous. You are not disappearing, you are simply being held more fully, more completely. The last bit of waking awareness curls up in some small corner of your mind. Like a cat in the shadow of a warm stone, it circles once, twice, then settles, tucking its head under its tail. It no longer needs to watch or evaluate or name. It is content to rest, to let the larger, quieter part of you take over the work of breathing and beating and dreaming. In the soft, protective darkness of Karnak temple at night, with incense long faded and stone holding the quiet, you drift, unhurried, into sleep.